Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, I'm going to tell you an unfortunate story written right here about a middle-aged man we'll call Frank. And this story will highlight and give you insight into the other side of the artificial intelligence coin, the dark side of the artificial intelligence coin. And that is the destruction that inevitably takes place in the path of progress. Artificial intelligence is game-changing and it will change the world. But artificial intelligence has already and will continue to leave a path of destruction, of jobs, of people's livelihoods, of people's careers, as it becomes smarter, better, and more efficient than humans. Today, we are highlighting one of those stories, Frank's story. So let's begin. Now, Frank is 41 years old. He has 2 children, and he has been married for over a decade. And for the last 7 years, Frank's life has been amazing, mostly due to him starting his second career. Unfortunately, as you will see in this story, that is about to take a horrible turn for the worse. Now, I did say second career, and that's because throughout Frank's 20s, he actually worked in construction. And at first, he loved it. But as the years ticked by, the manual labor did start to take its toll, and Frank felt himself aging faster and faster than he should as a 20-something-year-old. So Frank, who had never gone to college, decided to change that. 1, to better himself, and 2, more importantly, to eventually leave the construction industry. Now, Frank had a huge love for construction, so the career he decided to pursue may seem a bit odd. Accounting. But Frank's decision was for 3 main reasons. 1, stability. Frank had met someone that he truly loved, and he was ready to start a family. And what's more stable than accounting? Am I right? I am right? Secondly, because Frank had seen the boom and bust cycle of construction, having been in it during the 2008 Great Recession, and he wanted a career that was more resistant to that. And thirdly, most importantly, to take the toll off of his body. Now, Frank's father was actually a retired accountant, and he had always told him that while it might not be the most exciting job, there will always be a need for accountants. And Frank, having already spent his 20s in an exciting job, that's all he needed to hear. And within 5 years of that moment, Frank had gotten married to the love of his life. He had graduated a few months ago with honors from his local state university with a bachelor's degree in accounting, and he was about to turn 34. And his birthday gift to himself, he was finally putting his construction job in the past, as he had just been interviewed and hired as a junior level accountant at a mid-size accounting firm in the nearest city, about 20 minutes away. Now, Frank did take a bit of a pay cut at right around $52,000 per year as an entry-level accountant coming from construction, but the company did reassure him that with added responsibility, there was plenty of room to grow, and that he could expect to be close to or at $100,000 per year within 5 to 8 years. And even with the pay cut, with the dual income of his wife, which was around $37,000 a year, they should be just fine. Now, mind you, at this point in time, artificial intelligence wasn't really anything more than a term used in sci-fi movies. And the closest thing Frank knew about artificial intelligence was the Siri assistant on his phone, and that thing sucked. The point is, that thing, artificial intelligence, which would eventually unravel Frank's life, wasn't even on his radar. All Frank was thinking about was having a great life and starting a family with the love of his life and now wife, Sarah. And for the next 7 years, that's exactly what they did. His second chapter in life was amazing. He and Sarah had 2 kids, they bought a small home together, and his job was indeed stable, at least at the time. He also learned that he actually really did like numbers. Now, over those 7 years that eventually would lead Frank to today, 2 major things happened that come to mind. 1, Frank's salary did increase steadily year after year, and by the end of the 5th year, he was making about $87,000 per year. And secondly, Frank noticed more and more tasks at his office started to become automated. And at first, he just assumed it was computers doing this, but as the years progressed, he started to hear more and more about machine learning. And then more and more about artificial intelligence. This took place with more frequency, about 4 years into Frank's second career, about 3 years from today. Now, at first, Frank actually welcomed the change because being accounting, there were a lot of mundane tasks that needed to be done, and the more and more that his office relied on machine learning and artificial intelligence, the less and less low-level accounting tasks were placed on his desk. And that was in line with what ChatGPT, for example, and other purpose-built AIs were capable of at the time, basically automating the simplest tasks. Here's the thing, though. Artificial intelligence is, by its very essence, exponential. Did you know that the first computer was actually proposed all the way back in 1837 by a man named Charles Babbage? Unfortunately, due to funding, it wasn't actually created until 1910 by his son, Henry Babbage. But even back then, the lineage to modern computers can be traced. Computers are exponential. 1910, we saw the first crude variation of a computer, and it took over 100 years from that moment until 2011 for Siri, one of the world's most used assistants, to be unveiled. But then in just 11 years, in just 11% of that time, we went from Siri to ChatGPT. Computers are exponential. Now for Frank, over the next 3 years, this exponential nature of artificial intelligence would also grow exponentially more dangerous to his livelihood. The once helpful AI that automated some of the lower level accounting tasks slowly started to be competent enough to handle all of the entry level tasks like data sorting, basic data analysis, and basic bookkeeping. And with that, Frank started to notice something a little bit more terrifying. Less hiring and shrinking of staff, even though the company was growing. And honestly, AI started to resemble more and more of a parasite, slowly eating away jobs and employment, starting at the lowest level and working its way up. Entry-level positions were the first to go at Frank's office. At first, job postings were closed out. Then, first-year hires were let go. And then, the merging of jobs. Why hire 10 entry-level accountants when you can hire 3 to monitor and correct the errors of AI as it does the job of the other 7? And for Frank, the scariest part of all is just how exponential the parasite grew in just the last 2 years. It also made Frank realize something. This company that had treated him so well over the last few years was still, at the end of the day, a company hungry for profit. And this parasite that ate away at jobs was no parasite for the company, but instead a companion, a friend in its never-ending chase of profitability. Now, before we talk about the unfortunate circumstances that ruined Frank's livelihood, we have to understand that while AI may or may not change the world for the better in the coming decades, right now, what faces us before that, especially in the unemployment market, is pain. According to the World Economic Forum's The Future of Jobs report, AI is expected to replace 85 million jobs worldwide by 2025. And eventually, according to Goldman Sachs, it could replace the equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs. In fact, a whopping 44% of companies say they plan to replace jobs with AI at some point. And remember, AI is exponential, which means that percentage will surely go up as AI gets better at working. Now, pay attention closely as we go over some of the most at-risk jobs according to Business Insider. And think about what all these jobs have in common. And when I tell you, you might find it a little scary. Coders, computer programmers, software engineers, data analysts, advertisers, journalists, paralegals, research analysts, and accountants. All these jobs share a higher education as a commonality. All these jobs require some level of higher education. And according to Pew Research Center, that is exactly what is happening. Those with more education are more likely to face risk from AI. Workers with a bachelor's degree or higher are more than twice as likely as those with only a high school diploma to see exposure. And it doesn't stop there. Higher wage earners are also more at risk. Workers in the jobs most exposed to AI earned an average of $33 per hour compared to $20 an hour in jobs with the least amount of exposure. So, does it look like the future of AI is here to automate lower level tasks, or is it here to increase profitability for companies by doing the more expensive, well-paid, higher level tasks? Food for thought. Now, unfortunately for Frank, the speed at which this threat approached left him almost blindsided. For the last 7 years, accounting had provided him with a stable income to build his life on. And in fact, one of the main reasons he entered the field in the first place was stability. But all that changed over the last 2 years or so, as he saw more and more jobs merged, and as he saw this artificial intelligence parasite creep up the corporate ladder. And unfortunately for Frank, one day, just a few months ago, AI finally made it to his desk, not in the form of a friend ready to assist him in basic tasks, but in the form of a pink slip. In the blink of an eye, Frank's livelihood shattered. In the blink of an eye, the last 7 years at this company, the last 7 years of prosperity and growth in his second career, a career he got into precisely because of the stability, gone. In the blink of an eye, taken from him because of artificial intelligence. Now, the explanation offered, merging of jobs and shrinking of middle-level accountants, which Frank was part of. More AI meant less mistakes, and less mistakes meant less entry-level accountants required to catch and fix them. And less entry-level accountants meant less middle-level accountants required to supervise them. A celebration for the company? Maybe. More bonuses for upper management as profitability increases? Probably. But Frank had a house. Frank had a mortgage and a family. Frank had bills and student loan debt from getting the very degree that inevitably put in motion the events that led him to this moment. For Frank, artificial intelligence isn't a celebration, and it isn't the cool tech gadget that it is for everyone who is using it casually. For Frank, AI took away his career. And the worst part of it all, as Frank, of course, tries to find another job, doing the same thing he's done for the last 7 years, he's bound to find more competition in 2024 in a shrinking job market, not just from other humans, but also from the robots set to replace them.